And to take us out, we have a hardcore song called Squeal by a close personal friend of the Large, Frans Ferdinand of, I believe, Finland. Praise Frans, praise Bob. Whoa! Last minute change of long-range plans, friends. I'll play Frans in a minute, but first, I'm forced by necessity to finally tell you, the individual listener, that if you personally, don't do this one little thing to help me out, this song by Frans will, in fact, be the last thing you will ever hear on Hour of Slack, and this will be the last episode of Hour of Slack. Yeah, I know, haha, very funny, but in fact, I'm dead broke. And though I may not sound it in announcer mode, reading from the script, I'm almost suicidally depressed by recent events, or non-events, as the case may be. Bob is rich, of course, but his Church of the SubGenius, however, is dead broke. And the Hour of Slack is more broke than both the church and me put together, if we can be put back together. Because this show is, or I should say was, played on a number of college and public stations, it's against their rules for me to try to raise money for myself. And that's why we've never harped on the membership ordainment thing, the $30 or now $35, or ask for donations, or even give prices, because on these kind of stations, it's illegal. But this episode isn't for broadcast, just the internet. And so in this one case, for this one final and first time, I can tell you the truth. I recently came out of the haze of Dobbsful slack that I've been in for the last 1,327 weeks, and admitted to myself that although roughly like 1,300 to 2,000 people download this show every week, and it's mailed to 9 stations, only 3 of those stations have actually bothered to pay the requested $5 an episode for the last 3 years. And maybe 3 of the 1,300 downloaders have ever sent us a donation. Then, last week, I very foolishly looked at the general feedback I was getting from listeners, which is essentially none at all, or maybe a 4-word non sequitur every few weeks, or else death threats. Now, I've dealt with poverty for 35 years now, and that's fine. To me, poverty is normal. What I've never faced before is absolute pennilessness and having my morale beaten down by cruel people. I made the mistake of asking on a couple of internet SubGenius forums how many people listen to the show, and I made the even bigger mistake of saying I was so depressed that I didn't feel like I could keep doing the show anymore. And here's the response I got. About a dozen people posted very heartfelt thank yous and sincere descriptions about how the show has helped them, from cheering them up to saving their very lives. About 30 people had enough energy to give it a like, a thumbs up. 3 people who, oddly enough, happen to do other SubGenius shows or podcasts, and I don't mean the Puzzling Evidence guys, practically jumped for joy that I might be leaving the airwaves just to them. I can't even begin to describe what it felt like. And I'm pretty good with words. But here's how much all of those people think the Hour of Slack is worth in terms of money. Not 1 penny. It took about 2 days of people laughing at my agony or damning me with faint praise or even praising me to high heaven in that handful of cases before I finally broke down in tears, literally, in a graveyard by coincidence, and right in front of a big tombstone with the name Smith on it, just by happenstance. I was on my way to WCSB at the time to drop off some old reruns so that I wouldn't have to try to be funny anymore. I really was truly at the end of my tether, as they say. Princess Wee was crying too because she saw the results of my public confession as well, which was many, many good intentions and 3 death-dealing insults from but not 1 penny. The only reason I didn't quit then and am now doing this possibly last show is because that same day, the day I was about to basically kill the show, the website, the whole thing, I got in the mail from Reverend Louie a box of 4 cans of ranch-style beans, which I can't get here in Cleveland, and a check for $150. He had sent that before my nervous breakdown and public cries for help. So it wasn't pity. He actually meant it. He actually likes me. I also remembered, or we reminded me, that Dr. Dark had come by a week earlier just to purchase $100 worth of SubGenius collectibles that he didn't already have. And I also remembered that 3 stations still actually go to the trouble of paying for the postage and CD costs of this show. WEFT in Champaign, Illinois, WQFS in Greensboro, North Carolina, and Rob Zarka of WCNI in Connecticut. So basically this is this last chance to keep our enemies from killing the show, just as they practically killed my spirit last Friday online. This episode of Hour of Slack is dedicated to those 3 stations, although they can't play it, and Dr. Dark and Reverend Louie. It's also dedicated to Priestess Pisces and her lucky fiancé, Reverend Frodis Suds Shaw, who've done more to keep me from killing myself than anyone except maybe Princess Wee and Dr. Legume. I will also admit that I'm motivated by sheer spite regarding the so-called SubGenius who the second as... It's going to take me a long time before I feel like I can sit down again, much less be funny. And there's only one thing that's going to motivate me to keep doing the basically tedious work that producing and distributing Hour of Slack requires. But only one person needs to do it. I need one person to prove to me that this show is worth at least 1 penny to them. There's a donation button on the radio page and also the front page of SubGenius.com. So far, this show, Hour of Slack, has proved itself to be worth kind words from a few people. But I want one person to prove to me that it's worth even more than words, at least 1 cent, by going to that donate button or mailing a check to our P.O. box or whatever, anything to reassure me that my last 26 years of making and copying and uploading and mailing and linking the Hour of Slack is worth some monetary value and hasn't been a complete and utter waste of my very life. Any monetary value. I'd love for it to be worth $50 to you, but if you're like me, $1 is a lot to give. Actually, I spend about $20 per show myself, just on CDs, postage, and envelope, and let's not even talk about the time involved. But seriously, if one person, can prove that they found this show to have been worth 1 single penny, A dime would be even better, but I don't want to get my hopes up only to have them crushed again. If I can get one cent donation from one person, that will be more than almost anyone else has done for me during these next darkest days of my entire life. Yes, you could save the show and my mind, such as it is, for 1 penny. Now, I understand that the effort of saying something nice might be too much for 99% of you. I know that pushing a like button on Facebook is too much like work. But I'm asking for even more than that. I asked online, several places. I got nothing. Not even the 1 penny. I begged. I tore my heart out in front of everybody and got kicked in the teeth, or the tooth, I should say, by a person that I thought was one of my best friends. I got many, many kind words from a dozen people and a sentence or two from a few more. But now I'm asking for something much harder to give than a thank you. I'm asking for a penny. I need to know if anybody out there, any single one listener, has ever gotten enough slack from these years and years of toil, mostly by me, to feel that it was worth that penny. Because so far, apparently that's not what it's worth. It's worth lots of very supportive sentences, but not worth a penny, much less a dime. Can you, brother, just one listener, make me feel a little better about this? Can you help the church by hitting that donation button or addressing an envelope to Cleveland Heights, Ohio? Can you be the one person rich enough to spend that 1 cent and keep this show on the internet? Fuck the stations. They've taken us for granted long enough aside from the 3 that pay. Fuck their listeners who can't be bothered to pledge $5 during a pledge drive, aside from the 10 or so that might have. I'm talking to you, the one SubGenius who is rich enough and merciful enough to send me an amount of actual money to help me psychologically, even if it's only 1 cent's worth of help, to help me not have to sell my equipment, erase the download servers and the website and the archives, and move to my pappy's basement in Texas. At least help me kid myself for a few months more that that's not going to be necessary. If you aren't that person, maybe you'd feel better about buying something fair and square. We have 2 huge catalogs of stuff online, mostly just sitting there. A tiny minority of subgeniuses, the special few who can and actually have read our 3 main books, called them life-changing. Heck, you might even want a $2 Bob pin or a Bob t-shirt. Golly, maybe even to finally become a minister or possibly own one of our many DVDs. See, I was a video editor before I was an Hour of Slack editor. Or maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree and you are not that particular subgenius. You're not the one who thinks the show is worth a penny. In that case, goodbye, forever, and the song by, well, whatever you'd call it, hardcore, by Franz Ferdinand will indeed be the last new thing you'll ever hear on the show once called The Hour of Slack. That's SubGenius.com if you're that 1 penny rich person who gives that one slightest fucking shit about what happens to me and the show and the church of the SubGenius.